Hey there, everyone. I'm Ashley Bullington, and this is the Campfire Realignment Special. We have some amazing content coming at you today as we talk about realignment. I have to introduce you to my friends, though, as we have Inside High School Sports producer Ward Fasoldon with us, as well as Matt Diggs, our Inside High School Sports insider. Wiz, realignment started at 9 a.m. We've got the news. All the districts are out. What do you think about what happened?
Well, we've been digging through these. Me and Diggsy have been digging through them early in the day here, and 6A didn't change all that much. They added some teams here, they added some teams there. We were maybe expecting a little splash there in the 6A region or 6A classification, but didn't get as much as we thought. My biggest thing that I see is in 5A Division One with Denton Ryan in the same district as Aledo. That's going to be a wild game when they play, and it's going to be a wild district as well. Diggsy, what do you think about what you've seen in the realignment?
Well, as you said, in 6A, we've got a lot of packed districts in DFW. We thought if DFW was going to stay with 9 districts, it would pretty much be business as usual with adding in all of the upgrades like Prosper Rock Hill that fit into that 7-team district. We saw Highland Park move up to 6A, and they got a favorable alignment with the Richardson and Irving schools, as opposed to maybe being in the District of Doom out there with Duncanville and Soto and Cedar Hill. We thought that Arlington and Mansfield might marry back up and make an 8-pack, but we actually see Grand Prairie and Arlington staying at 7. So lots of interesting information to unpack, but I think 5A Division 1 really is probably the thing that we're going to see as an impetus for 7A, because 5A Division 1 is got so many teams within such a small band of enrollment numbers. That's really, I think, what's going to create the 7A impetus.
We talked about and other 5A schools like Colleyville Heritage and Grapevine are finally getting back together again, and they're getting into a favorable district as well because they're in with some Fort Worth teams. So that's going to be an interesting ride there. And then some teams that are kind of going out east there. Lufkin being brought into a district with Lancaster and them. You were talking about this earlier today. Talk about how interesting that fold is.
You know, the travel idea with that, and Lufkin and Abilene got to go somewhere. So, I mean, you know, there's going to be everybody's going to have a way to say, oh, they should have gone this way or they should have gone that way. And when we have Dr. Els on, I mean, you can talk about that all day. If it should have gone here, should have gone there, and there is a appeals process. But Lufkin coming up to the DFW area is going to create some massive travel issues. 3-4 hour trips for Mesquite schools, and McKinney North has to be scratching their head wondering, why is Sherman not making those trips? And Sherman is with the Frisco schools, and we're making those trips, and that's just the way they cut it up.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about 6A, and you talked about Highland Park. And Jeff, if you want to bring up 7-6A, Highland Park is in there with the Irving schools and the Richardson schools. So they have a very favorable district coming up for the next 2 years, and we're going to have Randy Allen on here in a little bit. But just between the two of us, they got a Jesuit team that may give them some run here, but talk to us about the rest of that district.
Yeah, Lake Highlands and Jesuit have been the 2 big dogs in that district for a while, and I think bringing Highland Park in there will definitely make it competitive. I think it'll be interesting in talking to Randy Allen that they're only going to get 2 non-district games, and what are those 2 non-district games going to be? Will they get enough testing? Because the bottom of this district, I don't know, is going to make them a better team for the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, especially in a very loaded Region 1, where there's going to be some very good playoff games right off the bat. Highland Park will likely be a Division 2 team, and that will probably be the more favorable route for them as far as playoffs goes.
And I believe we have our first guest ready to come on. What do you say, Ashley?
Yes. So we have some really special guests that are coming on today. And first up, we have Dr. Susan Elza, the UIL Director of Athletics. We are super excited that she's taking time out of her day to come talk with us. Super knowledgeable. I mean, she made these districts. Dr. Elza, thank you so much for coming in with us today.
There she is.
Yeah, I'm alive.
I hope you're staying warm. That's the main one right now.
I'm being warm. It's easy to be warm on this day. I'm telling you, because everybody's getting after you.
Yeah. How you doing, Dr. Elza? Thank you for coming on with us. And I know realignment is obviously a crazy time. I only wish I had a hidden camera in that war room when you guys are doing all of this and having the mapping software and discussing this. At what point would you say in the process that the final alignment that we saw today, y'all were done and feeling we're good with this?
Well, I mean, it starts as soon as we get those numbers and y'all, we publicize those cuts and y'all get to see those. And right before we publicize them, then we start them. And y'all know we're using that mapping software system now that really helps us, take a lot of looks in a short amount of time. But we're working on those maps solid from the release day of those cuts all the way until, I guess, pretty much it was last week that we went to print, because they have to, they're sent to the service centers, so they'll have hard copies. I memean, nobody could go to service centers. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. In certain areas of our state, they could not go. So, it's a grind to get here, and then you release it, and you're just getting so many mixed emotions. But like I said, that mapping software really helps us, and but we're good. I went long on that one. I think it's because I've been talking so much today.
That's okay.
That's all right. We were wondering about in the Dallas area, DFW area, 6A. Not a lot of changes. You added some teams that came up from 5A, but not a lot of changes with districts. I was wondering why we have two nine-team districts and two 7-team districts. Was there a way that you could maybe split those up into 8? And what was maybe the thought process between going 9 and 7?
I mean, and I noticed whenever I was looking on social media, because that's where, you kind of want to see what the feedback is out there. And that's a question, but y'all know that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is just about the geographic location. And I can't remember because I have looked at so many maps today. Can you tell me which 2 districts that was?
The 9A districts were District 7 with Highland Park got added to the Richardson teams, and the other one is the Garland district. They got Wiley East added to them, and then there's a 7-team district in District 10 and District 8. We were thinking 10 may have gotten to Highland Park or Wiley East, but
yeah, I mean, when you're all that geographic location, I mean, obviously I lived up there my whole career, 23 years of it, and some of those were just tough decisions on, because we are looking at that. I mean, we know we're going to get questioned on that, and that's why we have that appeals process. But it's usually about where those schools are located. And if you loop in that other one, I mean, and y'all know that you have mileage and then you have travel mileage in those heavy areas like DFW, and we landed on it. And I know I've gotten a couple calls just asking about the appeals process, not from DFW yet, but we just try to make sure everybody knows they have another step if they don't like the way that we did it, and they're wanting those districts to possibly be even instead of odd.
Right. As you know, 2 of the questions in 5A Division 1, and there are no right answers when you come to some of these outliers like Abilene and Lufkin. Abilene could have gone east could have gone west. Same thing with Lufkin. They could have gone north or south. When you look at that, would you say that the number in the district, as far as if it's going to be a 6-team district or a 7-team district, matters in that decision making, or is it simply geography and mileage?
It's geography and mileage. I mean, and what everybody wants to loop into that is competition, and it's not. And so those numbers, y'all know, when you're looking at those right now, look at those maps, they tell a story. 5A D1 was tough, and 5A D2 was not much easier, in my opinion. Out of all of our maps, I thought that the 5A D1 was the toughest, because y'all saw in there that we've got some high volume districts in there. When you had Lufkin over there, you had some decisions where we're going to go central, we're going to go to Houston. Houston had the 10-team district down there with their own schools. I believe there was one right next door that was a 9-team, if I'm correct. I mean, it was, but it all starts, you start out west, and y'all see that domino effect. If, we got them crammed in there between 5A and 6A. Y'all seen our numbers. What is it? 496. And you get into that 5A D1, we've got some opt-ups, and you're trying to make 18 districts, and it's impossible with the number of schools that we're having to place in 5A D1.
And with 581, I think you mentioned that, and from my perspective and pretending how I would have done this, it was really the one with the big numbers in it, because after you have the West Texas districts, you had something like an average of 8.5 teams that needed to be in each district in the other 14, just because of the pure numbers. And that kind of brings us to the 7A discussion. Do you think that in looking at 5A Division 1, that might be the one impetus where you start going in bringing your evidence to the executive council, like, this is the issue, this is why we might need 7A when you look at it, because we have to realign, and this is what we have?
I mean, you're seeing exactly what we're seeing. I mean, and I think that the conversation about 7A actually started in the last alignment. And, you know, we're loaded, and you can see when you drop down to 4A, the disparity from top to bottom. I mean, we try to have that multiplier of 2, and, you know, where the top schools are not twice as large as the one at the bottoms. And it's just, it's that domino effect. I keep using that word, but, so 7A is not a matter of, you know, if, it's a matter of when, and what does it look like? And you're going to hear our deputy director talk about this, and probably even Dr. Harrison and Dr. Braddock both talking about this. We'll start those conversations tomorrow. We have to. We have 3 rulemaking meetings until our next grab of realignment numbers. And, you know, we don't know that the one thing I think that we continue to look at, and y'all examine the numbers just as good as we do, in my opinion. We've got to have a certain number of schools that will help us get to that 7A level. If not, we'll have to do something creative within the 6A, maybe even the 4A. And, you know, I'm not trying to reveal anything because we don't have anything. I mean, but we've got a lot of ideas that we're going to throw on the wall and see if we can get there by this next alignment. It could be one more. And I think, like I said, if you just go through and make yourself do the math, you understand what our challenge is. But we're close. I know we're close, and we're going to start those conversations on Friday.
I had a quick question. In 5A Division 2, you get that Dallas ISD district with 10 teams in it. Have they reached out about possibly doing a zone deal, or are they just going to have the one on non-district game?
You know, what's funny is they reached out before the alignment just to understand how other schools have done that in the past. And, you know, we obviously have a lot of resources because we get to see what everybody does all across the state. So I think they must have anticipated that. You know, to my knowledge, I can tell you my phone has not rang from the ISD. I think that they were thinking, just looking, you know, this is what's going to happen.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Elza, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've had a very busy few weeks, so we will let you go for now. Thank you again for spending some time to talk with us about this. Realignment, I know, is hard for all of you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us on, and y'all be nice to us when I get off here, okay?
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right, see y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Elza. Awesome, guys. It's interesting what she's talking about. I mean, 7A is coming. That was the main thing that I took away from that, other than that 5A Division 1 was a very packed district. But what do y'all think about the 7A topic?
7A's got to come, and it's just a matter of when. You know, I've heard her in other interviews talk about how, you know, just the process of the executive committee and the superintendents voting on it. It's not the quickest process in the world. So getting something for 2 years from now might be a little bit difficult, but I think it's got to come at the point, because we're seeing with this, all of these loaded up districts in DFW area, we're in Houston area and San Antonio area, we're just seeing 10-team districts all over the place. At the same time, you're seeing 5- and 6-team districts there. And there's quite the disparity as far as playoff percentages. When you have 4- and 5-team districts, obviously 80 and 100% of people make the playoffs, versus 10-team districts, only 40% make the playoffs. So that's a competitive disparity in many ways. You know, out in El Paso, where you have these 6-team districts, 4 of them are going to the playoffs. And meanwhile, there's going to be some really good teams in DFW. Like, you know, I even said it on Twitter that Lancaster is not guaranteed a playoff spot right now with their district. And that is a crazy thing, because we've penciled them in the playoffs for the last 20 years, it seems like. And now they're in a district where we just don't know.
Well, guys, one of those schools that had a little bit of change this year is the Highland Park Scots, and we are going to welcome in their head coach, Randy Allen. The Scots are moving up to 6A, and it's going to be a very interesting year for them. Coach Allen, thank you so much for joining us.
Connected to his audio right there, but he'll be with us. They're in there with they've moved up from 5A. They've been 5A for a while. They had a 4A and 6A for one rotation, I believe. Is that right, Diggs?
Yes.
And now they're back in 6A, and they got moved up there with Jesuit, Irving schools, and the Richardson schools. Coach, if you can hear us now, what do you think about your new district?
It's very similar to what I thought would happen. I thought the UIL would go close proximity to us, and we've been in there with the Richardson schools before when we were 6A, and Irving schools, we played Irving Nimitz in the playoffs before, and then Jesuit, of course, is very close to us. So I think it's a district with great coaches and great administrators. We should have a good competition.
Now, Coach Allen, Matt Diggs here. Do you have any thoughts about the 9-team district? Because now that's only going to create 2 non-district games, and you're going to be starting right in week 3 when district. Is that something that's favorable for you or not so favorable?
Well, it makes it easier to get your schedule. We had Marcus and Louisville our first 2 weeks, and we had to drop 2 other teams that we had possibly playing the 3rd and the 4th. I guess if you play more games and you have more teams, there's less of a chance of making a playoffs because there are more teams competing for a place. But as far as getting a schedule, it makes it easier. But I don't really have a feeling one way or the other. It's the largest district I've been in, though, 9 teams.
I was going to say, moving up to 6A from 5A, you've obviously done it before, but is there any challenges that has in front of you as far as moving up a classification, playing larger schools?
Well, it's tougher competition each week. Looking at our region, we've got Denton, Guyer, South Lake, Arlington, Martin, just to mention a few in our region. You just don't know which ones are going to go small school, which ones are going large school, but there's some great football teams in our region.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that, when y'all were doing in your coaches, and I'm sure you had your big board up and you were looking at different things, did you model different districts? I mean, I know there was a scenario where you might have gone south with the Duncanville, DeSoto in that district. Did y'all have different models that you were looking at?
Our coaches always like to predict what we would be in, the districts we would be in. But the one model that kept coming up was us with Rockwall Heath and Rockwall. Some people were talking about that, but and they would say something about, well, how would you feel if you went Plano and Allen's way or whatever? But I just thought the UIL would keep it close proximity, which they did, and so I'm satisfied with our district.
Have you had a chance to look at the rest of 6A and DFW, and was there anything that kind of shocked you or kind of made you think about it, or have you had a chance to even look at it?
Yes, I've looked at it, but nothing really jumps out at me except Region 1 is really tough. I mean, there are some really good football teams in Region 1. So that's the only thing that jumped out at me.
And with that end, you were talking about that, and I think that's a big factor that a lot of people are talking about is that the fact you could have gone Region 1 or Region 2, and you did end up with Region 1 and a by-district pairing with the Arlington and Grand Prairie schools. Was that something you were expecting to have that kind of by-district pairing, or were you expecting more of a, more regional with maybe the Richardson schools if you wouldn't have been with them?
Man, I really hadn't thought that far ahead. The farthest I thought ahead was just what district we would be in. I wasn't thinking about who the by-district opponents would be. And but you take what they give you. You take the alignments and you look at it. And I'm sure down the road we'll find out more about it or think more about our opponents. But right now we're just looking at district, and we're glad we got it out this morning. It was a lot less stressful getting it at home as opposed to being at Birdville, where, there's always emotions waiting for that alignment to appear. And then everybody's scrambling to find games. And it just seems like it was much less stressful getting it at home.
Well, Coach Allen, I'm glad that it was less stressful, and I'm glad that you took some time to speak with us today. Thank you so much for joining us here on our realignment special. Good luck to you guys in the coming season.
Thank you very much.
You have a good day, Coach Allen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Coach. Hey, let's talk 11-6A, Diggs. Jeff, if you can pop that up for us real quick. Always the district of doom, they call it because of the South Dallas teams in there, but look at that new team in there, Skyline, and they got rid of the Waco team. Talk a little bit about that district and what you think who may come out as the 4.
Yeah, one of the alignment projections I thought is when you look at the geography of it all, you have Jesuit, Highland Park, and Skyline kind of on that 75-45 corridor there, and kind of how those would get divided up, and Skyline being the southernmost of that team, I thought would be the ones that would get sent to the south area. But you could have easily seen a situation where they kept Waco Midway North, and Waco Midway now being in District 12, losing some of those Killeen teams to 5A Division 1 had a little bit of a domino effect where Waco is now needed in the south, and now you have that very good district. I think a lot of questions abound as far as why Grand Prairie stuck with the Arlington districts instead of Mansfield. You could have easily seen the Mansfield schools being with Arlington, creating that good 8-pack and sitting the Grand Prairie, South Grand Prairie over there, which could have made 7. And I'm not sure geographically one would have been a winner versus the other one. It's just kind of what they decided to do. And I guess they had the familiarity that new mapping software, I think, is going to be something we're really going to be analyzing, because for the first time, they've been only using the mapping software for about the last 2 realignments. You're seeing very consistent trends, like for instance, Louisville and Plano being together. That mapping software likes to keep them together, and it seems to like to keep Arlington and Grand Prairie together, despite Mansfield being right there in some, Mansfield Timberview is actually in Arlington. So that'll be interesting to watch to see trends over time.
And you had mentioned earlier, we all know you're a big Plano East fan, and you thought Plano might be back with Allen, but that didn't happen. That's another 2 years with the Louisville ISD, and Louisville ISD not going up with Denton Geyer and the Denton schools, which we'll talk about a little later when Rodney Redd jumps on with us. But talk about your thoughts on Plano not being moved back.
Yeah, there's a drinking game going on right now. For every time Plano East is mentioned in this show, we're going to have some very happy coaches by the end of it. And you started it, Ward, not me. So
drinking water, by the way.
The drinking coffee, of course. But I know that I think a lot of people were frustrated to see Louisville and Plano together from a competitive standpoint, because Louisville ISD is very good in all the sports. And I think Plano would have liked a little bit of a break and maybe go to Region 2 and try some new things, maybe be bi-districted with the Garland schools. But now, even if a Plano school makes the playoffs, they're looking right at an Allen first round game. So that's definitely not something you want as a by-district pairing, but at the same time, you got to get better and you got to win these games. And there's a pretty good path to having a 2 to 3 round deep playoff if you can get out of this district. So I think there's a little bit of disappointment, but I think we're going to see for the first time Plano East and Allen will not be playing each other for at least since 1999. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I don't think they're going to keep that rivalry going.
Let's switch down to 5A for a little bit. 5A Division 2. We'll talk Division 1 a little bit because we're going to have Ty Rogers on here in a little bit from Argyle. Argyle, Melissa, and Midlothian Heritage, they're all moving up. What do you think about the districts they moved into? Let's kind of start with the District 7, 5A Division 2. Jeff, if you have that one. Maybe talk a little bit about that district because it looks pretty challenging. They got 3 with Lovejoy, Melissa, and Mesquite Poteet involved in there.
Yeah, Melissa is definitely jumping right into the fire as part of this district. And it's a very competitive district. And what I like about this district is you have all kinds of, you've got just the random 1 teams in there. You've got Terrell, Poteet, Crandall. It's very geographically diverse. And their by district against District 8 is going to be incredible. I mean, you're going to see some amazing games when you get into the playoffs with, Texas High, Lovejoy, first round kind of games. I think Lovejoy has to be considered the favorite in this region, but obviously Mansfield Summit coming down from 5A Division 1, where they made it to the state semifinals the last couple of years. They have to look at this and go, hey, I think we have a good chance here as well. And Ennis has been a favorite the last few years. But Melissa, I think, has to be very optimistic, and I think they will make the playoffs in the District 7 5A Division 2.
That is a very good point. Now Argyle moves up to 3 5A Division 2, and they have a couple Frisco teams. They got Lake Dallas, who will give them a little competition, but they have a favorable district. And I know we're going to talk to Todd about this in a little bit, but that district looks pretty favorable for them.
It really does. I mean, Argyle couldn't have asked for much more. You've got the 3 Frisco schools. You've got Lake Dallas in there and Denton and Creekview. I think Argyle is going to be a huge favorite as far as that goes. And then when you consider regionally, the fact that they're in Region 1, Argyle can make a really good playoff run as far as this goes. The last few years, we've been looking at a situation where in Wichita Falls Rider and Lubbock Cooper have seemed to make it consistently to the finals of that region. And I think we're definitely going to see all kinds of different things now with Argyle and Colleyville Heritage and Grapevine all being very competitive in this Region 1.
Well, guys, we are going to bring in another one of our guests as we have Rodney Webb of Denton Guyer coming on with us. Last year, this coach in your first state title game. I know you guys are hungry to get back. It looks like you have the exact same district as a year with one addition to Rock Hill. What's your thoughts on that, Coach?
Hey, are we going here?
Yeah, hi, Coach Webb.
Hey, I'm a little technology challenged here. So yeah, I mean, I think that to me the big story of realignment is very little change. You know, that it's pretty much, at least I've not looked at the other classifications all that closely, but very little difference. You know, you've got some schools that have been plugged in here and there. Rock Hill, who's new to 6A, Highland Park making their return to 6A, got them plugged in. You know, and a few other random schools here and there, but outside of that, it's a lot of the same. You know, our playoff road this year is going to look very similar to what it's looked like the last 2 years. You know, we've got the Louisville Plano district right next to us. And so you know, to me, it's the biggest story is the very small change to the 6A landscape.
And when it comes to that, I know a lot of the coaches have their big boards up there and they model different things. What was the craziest thing you saw that you thought Guyer had a reasonable chance to be aligned to when y'all were playing with hypotheticals and possibilities?
Well, you know, to me, the thing that made the most sense was to pair the Denton schools and Little Elm with Louisville. You know, that was a real tidy 8-team district when you throw Coppell in. You get the Plano schools realigned with Allen, reconnected with Allen, which seems to make a lot of sense from an enrollment standpoint. So I really expected that's what was going to happen. That's what we were sort of counting on. But you know, it's always interesting when you're dealing with realignment. You see things through your own lens. There are a lot of different ways to do it that make sense, and it's always seems to be like when we try to figure out what's going to happen, we're always looking at it from the standpoint of what makes the most sense for our school and our district. You don't consider the other things. So that's the one that I was sort of expecting was going to happen. But you know, historically, Guyer's never been with Louisville. I mean, you would think like we're right there. I mean, we are Guyer High School to Flower Mound High School is 5-minute drive, and you would think at some point in time we would have been paired together, but it's never happened and still hasn't happened.
Yeah, I know that very well because I live right next to Marcus, and I drive up to check on you every once in a while. Talk to me about what your non-district schedule may look like. Have you seeded out some games? I know you guys usually use Birdville to do that, but that's not happening this year. Have you figured out who you might be playing?
Yeah, so we're pretty set with our non-district schedule. I went into the day only needing a week 3 game, and we had Denton Ryan sort of penciled in, assuming nothing crazy happened. We were going to play them, and then Ryan winds up in a 19 district. So we lost the Guy Ryan non-district rivalry game, and it was a little tense around the Webb household this morning because I couldn't find a week 3 game for a long time, but we ended up picking up Lancaster, which will be a really good competitive game for week 3. So we're going to go Rockwall Heath week 1. We're going to play Aledo week 2, and we're going to play Lancaster week 3, and then we jump into district.
I can't remember last time I've seen a Lancaster Guyer game. Maybe this is the first. I don't know.
I don't think they've ever played before.
We'll tap Diggs's brain on that one.
Well, I don't remember that, but I know Guyer and Aledo had a 2-year series a couple of years ago. That was fantastic football. And I know Denton Ryan will probably be watching that game pretty intently now that they are together as far as that goes. What do you think about Denton Ryan and Aledo being in this? I know that's not your thing, but I mean, they're your friends over there at Denton Ryan. That is a heck of a district pairing.
Yeah, there really is. You're talking about 2 teams that are going to be in the conversation for a state title playing in the same district. But yeah, at the same time, I feel like, Denton Ryan has been in a situation with a couple of notable exceptions. They've been in a situation the last 2 years where they've had a lot of non-competitive district games. And so I know they always look forward to playing somebody really tough at some point during district to get them ready for the playoff run.
You talked about being in the same district again for the next 2 years, but what we've learned from 5-6A is those playoff teams that make it out of there are battle tested. I believe Prosper finished fourth the last 2 years, and they met you 3-4 years or 3-4 rounds deep in the playoffs the first year, and then last year they got a couple runs. It's maybe not you want to be with the Louisville teams, but heck, you guys are certainly getting battle tested playing in that district.
So in 2021, District 5-6A went 24-4 in non-district. And I would challenge anybody to find in the history of Texas football of any classification, a district that had that kind of winning percentage in non-district. And then 3 of the 4 teams in 5-6A played in the state quarterfinals. And then obviously, we played in the state championship game. So I think with very little doubt, it was the most competitive district in Class 6A last year. Any of the 7 teams in our district would have made the playoffs in any other district in the state. And I think that's not even really, all that subjective of a statement. I think hands down, that would have happened. But 3 of those teams got left home last year. Add Rock Hill in, who's an up and coming program. And I think it's going to continue to be one of, if not the most competitive district in the state.
That sounds like a campaign speech for that. You guys are the district of doom.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But when you look at it top to bottom, and I've been scanning it this morning since it came out. Again, look at it top to bottom and tell me another district in the state that is more competitive, more balanced. There's really not one.
Do you think there's any kind of when you look at the by district pairing, Schuyler has been Division II pretty much consistently, and now in the 7-8 by district pairings, you've got Highland Park down there. Is that something you kind of have your eye on now and looking at playoff projections? If y'all are fortunate enough to make the playoffs, which I know in your head it's always, but hey, we have to, allegedly kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the first things that stuck out to me when I'm kind of perusing our region. And obviously, you're always looking for the teams that will go D2. We're going to obviously be a shoe-in for being D2 should we make the playoffs. And, you're looking at those other schools in the region. Highland Park is definitely going to be D2. Jesuit, always tough team. They should be back. And then I think there's also a really good chance this year Southlake goes back to D2. They've been D1 the last couple of years. But now Eaton is a larger enrollment than Southlake. And so I think, obviously there's other teams that are going to be in the conversation, but I think, there's a much higher likelihood of Southlake being in the D2 playoffs. I think it's also, if I'm not mistaken, Prosper would be D1 this year. I think they're the second largest school in our district. So we lose Prosper to D1 and probably gain Southlake and for sure gain Highland Park.
Well, Coach Webb, thank you so much for joining us. First off, I have to say, I love the decorations. You and your wife, the last time we talked about the decorations of the house.
Yep.
I love them. We're gonna have to send me some pictures sometime. I want to see it all. But thank you so much for your time. I know today is a stressful day for everyone, so thank you for taking some time to talk with us.
Awesome. Hey, good to visit with you guys.
Bye, Coach.
Stay warm.
Bye,
y'all.
You too.
See you guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Well, we have our final guest coming on with us, the head coach of Argyle, Todd Rogers, another coach moving up in classification. It's interesting to see all of these teams moving, but Coach Rogers, how's it going today, sir?
Good morning. Well, it's been an exciting morning. It was a treacherous drive in, and then, then the excitement hit the computer screen. I
bet. So how do you expect a transition? Do you expect an easy transition going into 5A?
Oh, I don't think it's easy. I think we're used to being in pretty good shape here in Argyle with football and all the sports, but I think it's going to be, we have to ramp up business. I think it's going to be more competitive. I think there's going to be better coaching, and certainly, we'll be dealing with a person. It's just they got bigger populations to choose their athletes from. So as we work through it, I think we'll be fine, but getting our toe in the water is going to be challenging.
Yeah, it'll definitely be challenging. And I know that really when I was looking at realignment and trying to plot and get into UIL's mind, Argyle was a team that could go a lot of different directions. And I think of all of the directions that they could have gone, that for me as a football analyst, I would say this was a favorable one. But when you were looking at the different things, which options were you seeing as maybe more likely, or did you think it was going to look something like this?
I just really thought that, Fort Worth was going to be their own district, and we were probably going to have Grapevine and Colleyville, and Ayers. And I thought it was going to be an 8-team district. Region 1 is very small, and I just thought they were going to go and pull more schools that direction. But I was proven wrong once again.
These are always tough to predict, but we got the district up right now, the new 3-5A Division II. You got Creekview, Denton, 3 Frisco schools in Lake Dallas. It's. I mean, you're not going to say this, but I will. It's fairly favorable for the Eagles. I mean, it's a nice district to be in, but you have to find a couple 2-3 non-district games. Have you done that yet? And who might you play in the non-district?
Nobody's easy. I think the district is. You know what we're going to be looking at it from. It's from a travel standpoint. We're really excited about that. We've gone to all stretches of Texas to cover games and football and for our winter sports and certainly our spring sports, we go to the reaches of the earth. So it's fun to get in the bus. We may dress at home and actually go to a football game instead of having to pack a bags and travel for 3 or 4 hours. So I think proximity is a very positive thing for us. We're looking at possibly playing Melissa and Lovejoy and Grapevine in non-district. We need to pick up a 4th. So if you could broadcast this across the state, we're looking for a week 4 opponent. And we can get that sealed and locked in and try to get us a 10-game schedule. But no, we're pretty excited. It's new, it's uncharted waters, and our kids are very motivated right now. They've been waiting for this day.
Hey, just so you don't miss the travel too much, let's see if we can get you an El Paso game or something like that. Send you on a nice bus ride to bring back memories.
That's
Well,
really neat.
I've looked at, playoff opponents, and it gets sticky in a hurry. You're going to Amarillo, Lubbock, or El Paso in an area game. So if we're fortunate enough to make the playoffs and be able to do that, we're going to be excited about it, and we'll plan accordingly.
You put some really good non-district games on the schedule. Is that by design or just kind of by default with who will play you guys?
Yes and yes. It takes heat to make steel. I learned that quote a long time ago, and you have to. Football's a tough man's game, and you have to play tough opponents to get yourself resilient and prepared for the playoffs and to win a district championship. And that's kind of my mindset. But they think that we're big dogs coming up from 4A, and I don't see us as that yet. So we're going to get out there and prove ourselves in 5A, and certainly with the people we have on the schedule, it'll be a tough and daunting challenge.
Is there a little bit of a comfort level looking at that? Because there was a good group of 4A Division I teams that had good playoff runs who also came up to Conference 5A Division II. You talked about Melissa keeping that over. Midlothian Heritage came up. So when you're looking across the district, is it good to see some of those familiar names?
Yeah, and that was quickly my speed dial this morning to make sure if they needed games. And I've even called Don Hyde down at La Vega, and he said, you're my last resort. So it's been fun. I know all of us are growing. We have great populations, and we have great communities, and it's going to be fun how the communities respond to this move up to 5A. I'll be watching from afar with the Melissa and Midlow Heritage. It's going to be fun because they were really good 4A Division I teams, and I'm excited to see how we can persevere in 5A.
You're talking about moving up and the changes in moving up. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are you guys putting up a new stadium out there?
Well, that's going to go before the people here in May. So if you give me a chance to talk about the bond packages, we got a couple $1 million of bond packages coming up, and we've got to build elementary schools and a stadium and hopefully an indoor and maybe a new middle school. And so we're looking forward to that. We come from a community that's very progressive, and they want the very best, and Argyle ISD is dedicated to give them the best.
I know some of our friends in the naming conventions call you guys Flower Mound Argyle sometimes with what cities and where officially the high school is.
Don't Google us because we're going to be in the city of Flower Mound. So that's got its own challenges as well. If you don't understand school districts and counties and how it works in cities and municipalities, it's a tough, difficult concept to understand.
Awesome. Well, Coach Rogers, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing your Argyle Eagles in the coming season. And thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Well, it was a treacherous path to get to the office this morning, but it was well worth it.
Treacherous.
Well, we hope you stay very warm, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. Best of luck to y'all, and I'm excited to go back and look at this and see how everybody else is thinking how it turned out this morning.
There you
go. We'll stay on the lookout too for that last game that you're looking for.
Okay. Hey, shoot me a text, Ward. You know how to get a hold of me.
Absolutely. I'll get you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Week 4, Argyle is open.
Yes. Week 4, baby.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, we have a few minutes left, guys. What's been the most interesting thing that we've heard so far today? Or what's been the most intriguing part for you guys?
Well, for me, I mean, everybody's optimistic, and you get on here and everybody kind of gives their standard answers, and that's what you expect. I mean, the generic coach speak when it comes to that. And looking back at things, it is so hard to divide up the metro areas because you can divide them up in so many ways. And I think when we all look at it from our biased lenses, if you're a Garland fan, you could look at what makes sense for Garland. If you're a Duncanville fan, you look at what makes sense for Duncanville, and you can start alignment there. But as Dr. Elza said, you really have to start west and move it east and look at things. I would have done things differently, obviously, in many different ways. I think that even geography-wise, I'm very curious, and I think we're going to see appeals with Lufkin and Abilene, because although they say, well, this is strictly a mileage decision, the mileage isn't making sense right now when I'm looking at it. But then they might look at the travel thing, and Ward, you might be able to speak to the Houston highways going south. Maybe they're more treacherous than the East Texas highways and going north. I don't know, but the numbers don't make sense. And I think McKinney North right now has just to be looking at all of this and thinking, okay, we got Sherman with the Frisco schools, yet we're going to Lufkin.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
That's got to be a different. And Dr. Elsa mentioned the appeal process. I have a feeling that McKinney North will be jumping in on that one. Before we go, let's pull up 3-5A Division I real quick. Kind of talk a little bit more about how that whole district's been completely reconstructed with all new teams in it. Talk about what you think may happen out of there. I know we've talked about Aledo Ryan, and we've even mentioned, heck, they'd probably play twice. They'll probably play in the playoffs as well. Talk about the rest of that with the Colony in there and Fort Worth South Hills coming up and being involved. Talk what you think.
I mean, Fort Worth South Hills, they've got a really tough draw. I mean, we've got Burleson Centennial. They made the playoffs. Azles made the playoffs. Brewers made the playoffs. And then you're going to have Aledo and Denton Ryan as two teams that are thought of as, state finalist kind of contenders. Just Northwest has made the playoffs over the last few years. And then you have a team like Saginaw who's getting better every year and growing. And it's not going to be too long before Saginaw is in 6A with the growth out in the Eagle Mountain Saginaw district. So the Colony is thinking to themselves, because they've been in pretty favorable alignments where they've been competing with the Frisco schools right for a playoff spot. You have a real hodgepodge of about 3 or 4 different districts where you have like the 2 top teams in this district. And all of a sudden now you have probably the 5A Division I District of Doom, because this district, Aledo kind of jokes of the people I know in Aledo talk about how Region 1 is a weaker region, but this district is going to give them, I think, the test that they want.
Absolutely. And one more district I want to take a look at, 7-5A Division I, if you pop that up. You talked about the travel with Lufkin involved. Right. McKinney North's going to have to go down south a lot. North Mesquite dropped down to 5A. They're in there. And then you got Lancaster, who was, dreading being in DISD for another. Well, you're not in it. Now you got some travel to do and you got some teams to play. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I even think of Forney. And Forney, you know, they have a new coach this past year, Coach Fleener, and they had such a good run in their district. And now in this district, I don't know if they're going to be thought of as a playoff contender in this district, although I know they're going to be fighting like heck to make that happen. I mean, you've got Longview, you've got Lufkin, and I think Lufkin, from a football perspective, is not the Lufkin that we have thought of. I don't think Lufkin is going to make the playoffs in this pairing. I know you kind of had to keep an eye on them with your Houston when they're in that 8-5A in that College Station North Houston district, and they didn't make the playoffs in that district. I don't think this district's going to be much better for that as far as that goes. I think Lancaster is going to really struggle to make the playoffs in this district. McKinney North has always been good. North Mesquite will be better coming from 6A. They'll finally have some numbers. Tyler is very athletic. They had a lot of young kids are going to be coming back this year. This is going to be a fun district, but nobody outside of Longview jumps out at me as a state powerhouse. But from there, I'd say 2 to 6 is very compacted with lots of different teams that can make the playoffs.
Well, guys, that's all the time we have for today. District realignment, guys. Like, I already feel like it's almost football season, and but as it's snowing outside, I feel like it's almost
snowing.
football season.
But
that's what we have for this
season. So that's
got a long way, but we're getting the kickoff now. We just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us, Coach Allen, Dr. Elza, Coach Rogers, and Coach Webb, who all joined us here on our realignment special. Wizzy, Diggs, thank y'all. As always, I love having you guys on with me. Thank you for letting me host with you guys. But you can follow us on all of our social media accounts to see all the district alignment coverage as the Campfire starts here in a few weeks. We have a ton of things that'll come at you and brand new content as all of these districts have been realigned. But until then, I'm Ashley Bullington, and for me and all of my friends, thank you for joining us.